Water actually connects everything. So whether it's the discussion around drinking water and wastewater, but everything we touch, everything we do, takes a lot of water, both schools, hospitals, oil production, right? Everything needs a lot of water to run. And that's what's driven me towards the industry. Understanding how that application is affecting the end customer. How can we improve their behaviors? Don't run your tap for 10 minutes before you get into the shower. As a great example. These are the types of things that at GRUNDFOS we're trying to really bring, energy efficiency, water use to the top of people's minds and drive behavioral shifts. There's a lot of pitfalls that we can have, and how do we navigate that? I think staying focused on the customer. And if you can really understand the customer, not with them telling you what's going on, but by watching them, understanding their behaviors, understanding how do you make their quality of life just a little bit better.
At Softtech, we don't just follow the trends, we set them. As the founder and CEO, I've built a team that excels in delivering cutting-edge solutions in software, hardware, and IoT. From concept to completion, we're the partner that turns your tech dreams into reality. Softtech, where innovation starts. Welcome to Forging the Future, and I'm here today with Steve Davis, Chief Technology Officer, Water Utility with GRUNDFOS. According to the United Nations, by 2025, half of the world's population will face water scarcity. For years, water tech innovation was neglected as people assumed water was limitless. But with climate change and population growth, our approach to water management is unsustainable. The old ways just won't cut it anymore. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you, Chris. It's both an honor and a pleasure to be here with you.
So, Steve, what's the biggest barrier to global clean water access today?
So I think it's a really important question. I mean, we first have to be aware of what are those barriers. To me, there's a couple. If you look at it globally, we need to have the right financing available, to those regions that just don't have the access today. So the Global South is a great example where we need to have the opportunity to finance projects and align towards that to sustain. The second one is I think you do need to have really the right technology built for the environment and built for that region that you're going to go into. So as you look at the two of those things, they have to come together, and with that regulation comes. So regulation is sort of, sometimes it's both a driver and it's also a way to actually set standards in the regions.
Is it just about clean water? Or I remember when I was in college, there was this book about just basically where, the water wars or something like that. It was all about Los Angeles just basically draining everything for 200 miles to get water into Los Angeles. But is it more about the access or about the cleanliness, or both?
I think the one thing I'd like to talk about is that, clean water is one thing. So once you get people clean access to water, you're going to create another problem, which is sanitation. So as we create water for people that have it, right behind it needs to be, how do we deal with wastewater? So we'll talk a little bit about that, because we create wastewater, we should treat it, and we need to do that because that's both dirty drinking water or quality, as you said. It was important to health, but also that, moving the wastewater into a way that it can actually be treated and effectively, put away and turn around and recycled, right? And put to use is super important to the water cycle. And I think that's where we're at today, is that we need to both focus on the drinking water quality, how we use it, how we rationalize it, use as little as we can. It's a precious resource, but then also how do we put it back and reuse?
There was some statistic about how when the water you're drinking today was actually the same water that the dinosaurs drank, or something like that, right? Where it's actually, this is the whole recyclable nature of water.
The water cycle that we all talk about, right? So that you learn from when you're a kid, right? We all get the book. I think when you're in kindergarten or first grade and you watch water evaporate, out of the pools and lakes and, streams, and goes up into the sky, turns and forms in the clouds and actually comes back down. And it also goes into the ground, right? And aquifers are super important. I think it's one of the probably most underestimated assets that we have on Earth, right? We have these aquifers underground. It's where for hundreds of years we've been getting water from both aquifers and surface water and treating it, and we need to protect those. And I think that's where it's really fun for me, is that water actually connects everything. So whether it's the discussion around drinking water and wastewater, but everything we touch, everything we do, it takes a lot of water, both schools, hospitals, oil production, technology, right? Everything needs a lot of water to run. And that's what's driven me towards the industry, is really that connection to that.
Well, why are aquifers so important?
So an aquifer is just a huge land that's underneath our feet, and it stores that water. And it is Mother's Nature way of filtering that water down into the ground to where it's at a purity level that we can consume it for the most part without any type of treatment. And it's a body of water that needs to be tracked, because it's really the nourishment that we need. And that's for farming, irrigation, and that's for our own consumption and health. As we deplete that and not letting time for it to replenish, or as we look at climate change, the drastic nature of us depleting that and not having the amount of time and resiliency of the aquifers creates a stress on us. And I think that example you brought up with Los Angeles, that's a prime example. If we don't allow the streams and the aquifers to replenish and to be healthy, then we're only just taking and not giving back.
So what recent global water crises have shaped your work?
Yeah, personally, I've spent with GRUNDFOS some time to actually go to the Global South. I've been to India recently and Africa, and been able to travel to areas that truly don't have access to water. The things that we may experience through TV or social media. I think recently that's really shaped what I look at as water and the reality of it. And watching that journey in terms of the problem being that they don't have really consistent, clean drinking water. And starting with that as the premise of how do we get people? And it's one thing to have a hand pump and a bunch of community coming together to get it from one, but if we want to have equality, a tap that can get to your house. I don't think it's a lot to ask for nowadays. It can save a lot of time. It can make you safer. And again, from a sanitation point, it makes you much cleaner in terms of that. So I think my experiences in those two regions, and there are spots all over the world. It's not that it doesn't happen here in the United States. We have issues around lead pipes. We have issues with PFAS. And there's definitely regions that have it. But those have really impacted me more recently, getting the exposure to that and visiting these sites.
I think it's surprising to people that there are regions that don't have access to clean water. And you tend to forget that it wasn't that long ago in the US that if you wanted water, you had to dig a well, right? You didn't just go into your bathroom and turn the tap on. That was like magic, right?
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of regions that don't have anywhere near that, right?
And I think, if I go with that, then there's those regions still that have the groundwater that's there, right? And they're using that pump that they've drilled a hole with. And, we tie that back to the problem. If the aquifer is drying up because a city that's not too far is taking from it, then that farmer doesn't have access because he doesn't have the advantage of getting a pipe, right? He doesn't have the advantage of a second source. So it's really important for us to protect that. And, the things like PFAS, which is a contaminant that's now leached through the ground and gotten into water sources. These are the things that we need to find ways to protect. But we also need to find the right technology to replace those products. But then also, what do we do to clean what's there and doing it effectively and efficiently?
What is PFAS? What does that mean?
So PFAS is a chemical. It's a chemical that was used primarily in a lot of fire retardant. And that fire retardant is, whether it was on Air Force bases or anywhere in military bases. Also, sometimes if you see no PFAS on dishes and pots and pans, that was on there to protect it and to keep it non-stick. That type of chemical is what they call forever chemical. So it builds up in your body. We found that it's It's in most people's bodies. It's just to a different level now. That's something that really heightened about 6-7 years ago. And it's a community that I came from actually in Pennsylvania that it was a pivotal point of where that came out from. So it's something that's not good for you. It's something that could be potentially tied to a lot of negative things, but hoping that's the best. And I think it's good to see people taking action and stopping the use of that type of chemical.
Can that be filtered out?
Yes. So anything I believe can be treated. So there's carbon filtration, different technologies. There's old school technologies, new school technologies that are coming out. I think we got to use those to our advantage and make them fit for the market and fit for the application and get them to the right sources to clean and to remove that.
Should I have a water filter at my house? Should I be filtering public water?
I get a lot of questions on that. I don't use water filter personally. Mm-hmm. I think that the utilities that are out there, if you're attached to a utility, I believe that they're the unsung heroes around. We don't talk about water utility workers that often, but when you're driving down the street and there's a water gushing out, you see a crew out there. That's a crew of people that keep that water, coming to our house. And I trust that they are going to tell us if that water is not safe to drink. And I trust that they're going to provide clean drinking water for us and also make sure that our lines are clean. So I'm a big advocate. I actually can taste the difference between different regions of where I go of tap water. And I think I'm a big Philly tap water fan.
Well, I mean, I've read articles before that says that actually because bottled water is less regulated than utility water, it often is worse for you. And then you've got the microplastics and everything else going on than it is like if you just drank tap water. But there's this public perception that bottled water is better.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that the bottled water to me, it's a really great position and it has some right uses for it, right? When there isn't tap water that's good to drink, great time to use bottled water. If it's in an event, great time to use it. When you're traveling, potentially, great time to use it. On a regular basis, you're at home, use the tap water. It's a great way to use it, and it's healthy, it's safe, and the public does a good job, I think, and those workers to really make sure that our utilities provide high quality water. And there's always test reports that people can go see and look at and those things. But
I'm always fascinated how the data actually tells a different story than the perception of what most people think. And if you just dig into the data, you see, oh, wow, it's actually opposite. I mean, like whether the water is clean or better for you or not, or whether we're getting safer in general in the world, right? Most people think the world's getting less safe, but it's actually statistically getting more safe.
Yeah, the anomalies that drive us towards a negative mindset in terms of that, we have to find a way to remove that and go to the statistically correct is that 99.999% is really safe and it's the right way to go. Mm-hmm. And again, you have media, you have technology, you have all sorts of ways and directions for us to get that message out there.
Well, so how is GRUNDFOS specifically, using technology to improve water quality?
So GRUNDFOS is a 75-plus-year-old company, family created, phenomenal values company, headquartered out of Denmark. The company started its roots in groundwater. So, this concept of a farmer that had a problem with getting the water to his crop and making sure that the crop has that right amount of water and access, and starting with a pump that solved a problem. And that over the 75 years has really morphed into a company that not just solves groundwater problems, but we look at all different types of water usage and how do we best do that. So whether that's in residential buildings, heating systems in your house, radiant heating pumps that circulate, doing it at low cost, heat pumps, which is a big story right now. Also HVAC systems in domestic buildings. So we've had this culture of bringing pumps, one of the world's largest pump company, the first company to put electronics in the pumps. So the first company to actually take the step to put circuit boards and, brains into a pump. And then taking from there, the company that actually now connects it to the network, to the internet in the right cases, making that transparency of usage and service time and all the cool things that you can get out of the pump, but also connecting the pump to the application, understanding how that application is affecting the end customer. How can we improve their behaviors? Don't run your tap for 10 minutes before you get into the shower. As a great example. These are the types of things that at GRUNDFOS we're trying to really bring, energy efficiency, water use to the top of people's minds and drive behavioral shifts, while also taking the technology to the next step so that we can actually invest in areas that, increase in our performance in those sides.
Well, what I like about it is that it's something that's very, like I said, mechanical, but now you've added all this data acquisition on top of it, and then you want to add AI on top of that. So it really goes from this very like plumbing type of solution to very smart AI powered solution, which I think that maybe a lot of companies don't realize when they're going through this digital transformation, that they need to be looking out for things like that, right? All of a sudden you have to become an electronics company, a data company, an AI company when you were a pump company. Tell me a little bit about that transition. I mean, what initially drove that, and was there any internal resistance to taking that position?
That's a great question. Yeah. So I think whether it's GRUNDFOS or any company that's a technology company or a product company with history like this, a rich history in a product, how do you transition, right, to being a company that involves digital and technology and electronics? I think most companies struggle, right, to do that. I think that's something that, for myself, seeing that in other big companies and in the startup world, there's a lot of pitfalls that we can have, and how do we navigate that is, I think, staying focused on the customer. And if you can really understand the customer, not with them telling you what's going on, but by watching them, understanding their behaviors, understanding how do you make their quality of life just a little bit better, and looking at the world in a way that everything is possible. And, getting the right minds at the table, people that are just coming out of graduation, they come with this, no barriers, right, to achieving things. So we bring those people together. We bring experts that are in the pumping side, experts in the electronics, digital, and we try to get closer to our customers. And I think as we've done that and we've used those experiments, and it's really enabled us to stay ahead. And that's something that's great to see in a company like ours.
Because many companies get stuck in like, hey, what do we do best? We make pumps, we design propeller units and all these different types of technology. We're not like an electronics company. We're not an IoT company. You look at Kodak, we're all about film, right? This is what's the quality is, and this is what we know. We're not going to do digital photos, right? But what they really needed to do is lean into that digital part, basically reinvent and transform themselves. Because if you're not going to do it, like you said, that next generation is going to bring that mindset to something new. Is, why aren't these pumps smart? Right?
100%. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's exactly what goes on with, Google and Amazon now in the home. They're starting to own a lot of the stuff that goes in the home as they collect the data, or at least direct you into certain decision making. All right, you may have went one brand for years. You may be a GE brand appliance person, but all of a sudden you're a Google person. So that means you're going to look for products that are enabled through Google to be able to use the data, right? So, and that data helps drive behaviors. It helps change the way you think about either appliance or how you interact with an appliance. And those types of behavioral shifts is what we're all going through, whether we realize it or not. And that's what we have to do. And as a technology provider, you're 100% right. In Kodak's example, how do we really pay attention to what we need to do to transform that experience that we have? So I think, at GRUNDFOS and surrounding what we're doing, we're always looking at how do we break what it is today in a way to make sure that we're protected for the future.
Well, so how does GRUNDFOS really engineer sustainability long-term in your products? How do you go about thinking about how do we make this sustainable?
So we have really good sort of core values I spoke of earlier. I think the core values help us make sure that we have that. We talk about our sustainability. So our ERGs, we talk about our CO2 footprint. We talk about energy constantly. our what we call REAP 2, which is an energy efficiency rate. And we look at the portfolio of products and what's our total impact. We even look at it from the region that it's shipping to, where it's manufacturing, logistics. And as we're looking at that, we're using some of the most modern software and tools to evaluate where we can improve. And we're looking at it not from the perspective of just us. We're looking at it from the lifetime of that product. And, as we look at that, we actually will target product roadmaps that go after products that we need to invest in order to make the total impact on sustainability. So we're doing that constantly. We work with some of the best and the brightest in sustainability around the world to bring them together, to analyze all that data and put it together into something that's super logical and very clear directionally.
How do you get your clients to really buy into that? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of time, money, and effort spent on making things sustainable, but then people want cheaper, faster, better, not necessarily pay a premium for sustainability. Do you get pushback on that? Do you have to really show some ROI, like, hey, this is sustainable, but this is why you should care about it? Or do they just care about the sustainability?
So our customers in GRUNDFOS, we're very lucky. I think they are the pioneers within their industry. So if you think of those early adopters on the curve that we talk about all the time,
the bleeding edge.
The bleeding edge, yes. Yeah. Those people are our customers because we are an innovative company. We are the top of the line. You're not going to come to us for something that's commoditized because we're going to be focused on the future. So that's an advantage we have. We're the first into markets. When we look at Africa, we're one of the first pump companies to go in there in groundwater pumps. Our brand is very well known. And interesting enough, they buy one of the highest end pumps from us with all the digital in it.
I would have thought it would be the opposite. Right?
And our cheapest pumps are sold mainly in developed markets. Now that's changing. There's more solar pumps going in all over the place. But yeah, predominantly, if you went by percentage, those regions that are underdeveloped are buying the most of the highest end because, again, they do value it. I think that there's a misnomer sometimes because I think that you really have to put an edge on the total cost to the customer. And if people are looking at that and they value their own values, they'll buy what's right for them and they'll buy what's right for sustainability of the earth and all that. But for us, I think it's part of our core and it's part of our customers' core today. And that we're very fortunate to have that. We're not coming from a position of low end, low cost side.
So what shifts in water tech do you foresee in the next decade?
So I think in the next decade, I see that way more partnerships and ecosystem plays are going to happen. So shifts are going to be around the part that we talked about with data companies, software tech companies, and the pump companies and other technology companies. There's going to be way more interactions between them in order to fulfill the needs that we have to have today. So even today in GRUNDFOS, we're doing more and more partnerships than we ever have before in order to meet timelines, but also to bring the right talent together to make the best product. When it comes to the technology, though, advancement, I really think that this concept of reuse is going to continue to grow. The concept of aquifer management, so understanding the aquifer, understanding what we're using, what we're putting back, and then the quality of water. So the quality of water is going to get more and more important. Situations like COVID, where people started to measure it in the water, to be able to direct where breakouts can be. Those types of events have really changed the direction. And water in general is going to increase its value. We already see it. Here in Houston, our water bills are going up. It's not going to slow down. It's finally getting to a point where it's not just a no-thought product that you get, and it's turning into a product that you really got to spend some time to think about. So the technologies that go into reuse, whether it's in the industrial side or if it's in the agricultural side or in the home use side, are going to really transform the next 10, 20 years. But it needs to come together with the brightest technology. So again, analytics, AI, data-driven decisions, that are going to change the behaviors and put us in a position where we're going to be utilizing this asset of water, the best in the world, and we're going to be giving it back for generations to come.
Yeah, the concept of, hey, it's not just something you should, like you said, don't run the water while you're brushing your teeth. It is a commodity that we should try to preserve, right?
Don't run that shower for the first minute or two.
Well, and then the technology has been catching up with that, right? The dishwasher that's much more efficient in washing the dishes than you washing them in your sink, and don't wash them in your sink and then put them in your dishwasher, right? Or having the water heaters where they're tankless heaters, right? So that you don't have this huge inefficiency in the tank. But then also overall, like how you treat it, which I think is fascinating, and then how you measure it, right? And what's in the water. I think I don't know who's doing that exactly, like what the COVID load is in the water and who's finding that. Is it just in the sewers that they're like censoring, like what's actually flowing through the system? Yeah,
sewers is a big area to monitor. So with COVID examples, yes, they're going out, they're sampling. There's some great universities building some phenomenal technology to be able to do that more in real time, automate it versus the sampling manually. But you can tap into that, right? You can tap into the data that's there. You can tap into drinking water as an example, and all that rich data that you start to utilize, right? If you don't want to have flooding in your street again, we can put technology today that can help nearly eliminate it, other than a hurricane or a natural event that's over and above. We can eliminate those things, but we got to spend money on it. We have the technology that's there. So it's just bringing those things together and having an initiative to say, hey, we're going to make that difference.
Fascinating. Well, I have my ocean socks on today. So my turtles and oceans. I do have some socks for you. They're not water socks, but they're technology socks. So I thought you could use a pair of those.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Cool. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
I know how important staying informed is for innovation and growth. The Forging the Future newsletter brings you the best in tech trends, startup advice, and industry insights. Join our community and forge your future with us. Subscribe now.